Hi, so I'm going to be leaving you some information this evening regarding some down the rabbit hole investigations on if there was actually an active shooter drill going on in Las Vegas at the time of the October 1st shooting, and there appears that there was. It becomes a little convoluted only because it starts off when you go into anytime you have to go through and look through 10 or 15 pages of Google to find something that should be popping up, like this girl's name did, who is now dead, who was, at the event, dodged the fire, 28 years old, down to be dead after she came out and publicly, explicitly talked about there were multiple shooters. That pops up right away. But this you have to look for. And when you find, and I have posted these links so you can see what I'm referring to. First link, it'll take you to an article that talks about the active shooter drill tests, but there's no date on it. When you click on the link, it brings you to a YouTube that's a clip from 2016. So then you might think at that point, oh no, it's fake, right? But no, I heard this from some credible sources, but they were questioning it too. Then go finally find the Dabu 007 shows how a union worker had a flyer that said, in fact, yes, mandatory active shooter training September the 30th, 2017. You can find it at the link that says Vegas union worker blows whistle on mandatory active shooter. So yes, there was training. That is a false flag. If you have followed along, you already know that in previous events where there are guns and shooting involved, what's going on at that same time? Yep, that's right. It is a drill. Coincidence? I mean, I could see it happening once or twice, but it's all the damn time. And I'm not going to leave 4,000 links to this. If you're questioning me, if that's true, then email me. Or send me a message, and I'll send you the Sandy Hook and so forth, so you can see that. Okay, so let's move on to. I'm just going to briefly say there was a man who killed his 27-year-old daughter, then himself, several days back, who was alleged to be an important witness for Vegas. That's in question. That link's in there. And then here we have the article, which someone earlier today brought this to my attention. I have this other things going on in the background, and when this person brings this to my attention, so that shows me this, it's like incredible. Really? It's not all over the news. We have to keep hearing about horny Henry Weinstein. We can't hear about this. Kymberley Schuchomel, Suchomel, 28 years old. She was there at Route 21 at 91 Harvest Musical Festival. Just a little over a week after that event. She's dead. Okay. Let's just roll back and let me read to you just a bit about this. And I'm not going to read all of it, but please read it. You don't need me to read it to you like a bedtime story. But she says, she speaks in a way that initially when I read this at first, I thought to myself, boy, this sounds so contrived. It sounds like somebody might have actually wrote this. Is this a disinfo agent? Because you have to be very careful about disinformation right now. Because what happens is, when people talk about controlled opposition, disinformation, if truth is coming out, just like when a car is out of control, what do? You first have to cut the wheel in that direction that it's spinning out of control in to gain control, and then you got to bring it back around. If you hurry up and you jar it the other way, you're going to probably flip the vehicle. Well, here we have an avoidance of flipping the vehicle. when people come out with disinformation, they will tell you something that has some truth in it and that has some lies in it. And they will sucker everybody in. I'm not saying this is that thing. Okay, I'm not saying that this is that thing, but it could be something like this. They show you something that they bring attention to, because when I put this girl's name in, Kymberley, it pops up within the first three things. It pops up, and this is relatively new information, kind of. But yet, whenever I do last shooter drill in Vegas, I got to go through 10 pages to really kind of even start figuring out what that might be. These are hints. These are clues. So what they do is they put a story out there, and then when they sucker everybody in and everybody's attention is on it, then they debunk it and they show why it's false. So then the next time a story comes out that has that same genre, i.e. in this case, multiple shooters, it'll just be, it'll just be discounted as not important or not valid. She writes a compelling story. I kind of tend to, I have a new mic, so I've been practicing here, so I've read it a couple times now, and, after reading it and understanding the time frame when she's writing it and so forth, I can imagine how it might seem contrived in some ways, because who writes like this on their Facebook page? I don't even go on Facebook, so I don't know, but, well, somebody who has been in a life-threatening event like this, and then they come home and they hear the mainstream media talking about, just talking about how there's one gunman, when they have experienced something very, very much contrary. If you want to listen to the whole thing, I'm just going to read from here on out. If you don't want to listen to the video anymore, just look at the links in the description box and have a good night. But I'm just going to read it, because I think you just okay. From about 50 feet in front of us and a little to the right, firecrackers were set off. Let me repeat that. Firecrackers were set off. I verbally stated some asshole just shot off firecrackers in close proximity to so many people. I was literally pissed off. You could see Jason Aldean look to his left, kind of startled by it, but he was so clearly irritated. I would say about 15 seconds later, the first volley of gunfire was released. She uses, the reason I was caught off guard at first is she just uses vernacular that you wouldn't really, I guess, I don't know, kind of use 28 and related to this situation, but I wasn't the one in it, she was, so. It was a shorter volley than any of the others, and the gunfire was not as close together either. Everyone looked up, down, around. We thought it was more firecrackers at first, but then Ricky reached over, told us all to put our boots on quickly, and the volley ended. The people started to panic. The gentleman behind me looked at me as I was putting on my boots, half lying down, and said, "Calm down, crazy, it's just fireworks, geez." That is when the second volley went off. Ricky yelled at us all to get down flat. We immediately knew there was someone shooting at us. I remember getting down, but I didn't lay flat for some reason, thinking, oh my gosh, I need to get flatter than I am now, but my body just wouldn't let me. That was the second volley. She's calling volley like rounds of shots. That's maybe the proper term. First time I heard that really used was when I was reading the article. Okay, at the end of that volley, I am still struggling to get my boots on. We turned and tried to run, but the people behind us still weren't moving. I yelled at this lady, "Run, it's gunfire, run." Third volley hits the AstroTurf. She said when the third volley hit, and it was close, very, very close to us, I could physically see the impact of the bullets on the AstroTurf. I could feel the warmth of the passing of the bullets. I think that's crazy. She's describing this like this. Once that third volley was over, Casey linked her arm into mine, and we decided at that moment we weren't stopping. We were getting the hell out of there, and I do mean hell. We were in literal hell, she claimed. The gentleman that mocked me, stating it was just fireworks, fell to the ground, and he never got back up. The lady behind me, who was now in front of me, who was terrified as I told her to run, never got back up. I actually had to physically step over her body to run, something I am still struggling with, so please don't attack me. I was absolutely in flight or fight mode. There was another person to my right who wasn't moving. We ran. I don't know what direction we ran. I don't know toward which landmark we ran. We just ran. It was at this time our group got split up. Casey and I were together. Ricky, Casey, and Mendy were together. I think it's called Castle, C-A-S-I-E, and C-A-S-S-I-E. Okay, I have my glasses on. Not sure. Okay, it seemed like that was the same person. It was obviously two different people, same similar name. And this is where my paranoia comes in. When I see things that I pick up on little details, and all the little details, the verbs, the words, the parallels, and sometimes, it's very easy to see into things that aren't there, which, can make anyone with mental gymnastics go fucking crazy. But at the same time, if you don't do that, you're never going to understand anything that's really going on. Or you'll never believe it. Because it's just that fantastic out there sometimes to even be able to wrap your mind around. So, you just take a little mental note and you stick it someplace until you might want to revisit it. Soon after, according to her account, she started to panic when she realized, she says, quote, 100% that there was more than one shooter and that multiple gunmen were in the crowd. We were rounding some sort of corner, maybe, and I looked to the right and I saw this large cowboy sitting down with his legs spread, holding a blood-soaked woman. I thought to myself, we need to hide. But as I looked quickly for somewhere to go, the gunfire once again got closer and closer. We couldn't hide because they, and I do mean they, were chasing us. That exact moment is when I started to really panic. That is the exact moment in which I thought this was it. I was going to die. I was never going to see my family again. So as we are running, we approach this fence where men are throwing women over, and we ran up to it as they had knocked it down, so we were able to get out. As we crossed the threshold of the venue, my mind went straight to other mass shootings and hearing the victims' families in my head talk about how they never got to say goodbye. I did not want this for my husband, who was at work, and my grandma, who had my daughter, Scarlett. So at 10:07 p.m., very specific, 10:07 p.m., I called my husband frantically, leaving him a voicemail telling him that I loved him and was in the middle of a shooting, and I wasn't sure if I would make it out alive. I believe her account at 10:07 p.m. to be probably the most accurate of any timeline that's come out. So if she tells us at 10:07 all these quote volleys, and I'm guessing this is rounds of shots now, okay? That all happened before 10:07. That I'd use this as a timeline more than anything CNN has shown us, really. She may be off about certain things, but some people, they get certain details right, and that's probably, I feel like that's probably very, very accurate, probably the most accurate. This is where it's, gosh, conspiracy, did somebody shut her up? You have to wonder, because what I'm going to say goes against the narrative, but she's not the only one. There are many people saying the same thing about multiple stories. What are they going to do? Kill half the people that survive? I mean, clearly they can't get away with that, right? Right? Right. Next, while still running, I called my grandma to tell her the exact same thing, but the gunfire wasn't stopping this whole time. It wasn't ceasing, it wasn't slowing down, and it was directly behind us, following us. Bullets were coming from every direction, behind us, in front of us, to the side of us, but I just know that there was someone chasing us. The entire time I felt this way. The farther we got from the venue, the closer the gunfire got. I kept looking back, expecting to see gunmen, and I say men because there was more than one person. There was more than one gun firing, 100% more than one. We were running. We kept changing direction because it felt like no matter what direction we took, we were being followed. So we ended up running in a weird triangular path. The first place I remember getting to was a parking lot, and I told Casey, who was slightly in front of me, we needed to get under one of the trucks. She turned to me and started her way back to me, and that is when the gunfire got even closer than ever before. It was right there. It was within the parking lot. Everyone around us was panicking once again, so we ditched the idea of getting underneath the vehicle, and we continued the run for our lives. If you know me, you know I'm a big girl who is out of shape and who definitely does not run for any reason, but I can tell you I ran like I have never run before, she continued in extreme detail. Now, as I'm reading you this, and I'm listening to this just tremendous story, yes, there's part of me that is saying, well, Anna, if you have somebody who is at a distance of 32 feet and they are at a 90-degree angle, and then they come over at more of a 45-degree angle, and they are shooting in these different directions, and she mentions triangular path. He's firing down, ricocheting bullets. It could maybe feel like the bullets are coming from every direction, when in fact they probably maybe weren't. Yes, I consider the other options. It's not like I listen to what one person says and believes what their account is. I play devil's advocate all the time. You can't block out information because you're already unwilling to, even if you aren't going to believe it, you can still listen to it. Sometimes there's still some value in something, even if part of it might not be right. She said, second place I remember going was Hooters, which is where we met back up with the rest of our small group. We ran towards the entrance thinking we could take cover there, but as we got closer, a stampede of people ran out terrified. We could only conclude that there was another gunman inside of that hotel. This made us even more scared. Now, and that story collaborates itself with some of the other stories, like at the Bellagio, when you have video of people who were saying that there were shots fired there. We had nowhere to go, no one to trust. At some point, we ended up at the airport and even entered the building for safety. Everyone, as we entered, was screaming at the staff, "Is it safe in here?" But we weren't getting anyone to answer us, so after running about 30 feet into the building, not getting the answers we so desperately needed, we decided it, too, wasn't a safe spot. So we got out of there quickly and continued running. This is where I would like to interject you. I'm sorry, this video is going to be just so long. Everything that's going on right now that Kymberley, R.I.P., is saying should be able to be verified via camera footage. There are thousands and thousands of very, very high-tech surveillance systems throughout Vegas. We should be able to find Kymberley and track this entire story. Yes, that technology is absolutely available. As is all the technology that you need to know really what happened in that hotel room, who was with them, and everything else. After all this running, we were tired, sore, and having to stop to cough, gag, and even vomit. We ran across an intersection, and us and another group of people pleaded with a limo driver to let us in and get us out of there. He was clearly confused and didn't understand what was going on, so he didn't let us in. Next, we ran to a taxi van, and she was willing to let us in, but she told us her van only held 4 people, and she wasn't going to let the 5 of us in, so we said screw it and continued running. At one point, we ran past a small liquor store where they so graciously gave us water bottles. We passed UNLV as well. Then someone notes this smaller Hispanic woman who's yelling out of a window of a dark-colored SUV. And she says that she leans out the window and she yells something we couldn't understand in a clearly taunting manner. It really freaked us out because, again, we didn't know who we could or couldn't trust. Could this smaller Hispanic woman have been the same short Hispanic lady reported by another eyewitness to have threatened concert goers 30 to 45 minutes before the shooting started? Ultimately, 8 days later, Kymberley Suckamil was found dead in bed by her grandmother, who went to her home at 8:30 in the morning on October the 9th. The report does say she was taking medication for a pituitary tumor and had feared to fall asleep at night after being heavily traumatized by the October 1st massacre. So there really is no cause of death that's shared. There were a couple other articles that didn't share them either. I think it's important to understand that this happened and to store that information. And to store the information about the other man who was an alleged witness that the FBI had spoken with most recently. I think the next day he killed his daughter and then himself. His name was John Thielman. Don't know when the media is hyping something up. Journalism is so important because for this reason, no, we don't have time. I don't know, maybe you do, but we don't have time to be independent journalists through the wee hours of the night if you want to actually look into anything. But then you got to rely on things like this. I find it very valuable to have someone like John Rappaport, who is a go-to person for me. You have to have at least a handful of people that you know will tell you the information, and if it comes out wrong, that they will correct that information. Which leads me to say, the other day I did do a video that showed Podesta's son-in-law. Now, with that too, yes, in emails that said Gordon, they change their names all the time. It's almost like it's purposely convoluted. You really can't find much information about him. Aaron Rouse. Is that her husband or not? It would seem like that would be so easy to find, but when you're lied to constantly, to believe what you're just told because someone says, yeah, it says this on this piece of paper. Come on. So, I ended up making a very long video, and all the links are in the description box for the things I had mentioned in there. Just giving you some more information as if you're probably not already inundated with it as it is. And this is the girl, Kymberley. So it really sucks to feel like, you don't want to. It's not even that you don't want to be had. I don't care if somebody wants to, it's not nothing negative on me if somebody else is a liar. But, to not know or to look at someone, because the last thing you want, because they're pushing this narrative online, trying to get away from fake news, right? That people are pushing fake news out there. And then how horrible saying false flag, or this wasn't a real event, the crisis actors. Well, there are crisis actors. But we're not saying she's a crisis actor, but there are going to be some people, and I've seen them. I've seen people in comment sections that say things that you have to stop and think. You really do. You have to stop and think that there could be real victims in a false, and there usually are, real victims in false flags. They may not all be. They may not all be. So when you lose that sensitivity of humanity and say, oh, everyone's a crisis actor, everyone is a crisis, everyone, I would drop that word from the vocab. I don't think it's accurate. I'm really going to go this time. I hope everybody has a good night. Bye.